Hello and welcome to today's ASI Association online webcast. Today we're looking at creating and managing online forms. So thank you all for joining us. My name's Marla Nelson and I'm a marketing specialist here at ASI. Our webcast today will be running for under 1 hour, so we'll be finishing at or before 3 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Now before we get started, I'll just run through some housekeeping matters and just ensure we're all up to speed with using the GoToWebinar system. So on the middle of your screen, you'll see the first slide of the presentation, and then on the right, there's a control panel. You can minimize that control panel down to a toolbar by clicking on the orange Grab tab arrow, and this will allow you to view the presentation in full screen. You can then click on that arrow to bring back the control panel when you need to. Now, everyone has been muted upon entry today to allow for clear audio, and we won't be opening up the lines, but we do welcome your questions and comments, so I'll explain how you can interact with us today. So you can post your question or comment at any time by using the question pane in the control panel. Just type your question or comment in the box provided and then click on the send button. I'll be monitoring these and will address questions and share any comments at the end of the main presentation. And if you're having any technical difficulties with GoToWebinar, you can also use that question pane and I'll do my best to assist you directly. Today's webcast will be recorded and made available via the ASI Client Support Portal and the ASI YouTube channel, and any attendees today will also receive a copy via email in the next couple of hours. All right, that's all the housekeeping out of the way. It's now my pleasure to introduce our presenter today. On the line is Alison Rose. Alison is a trainer here at ASI and she's going to take you through this session. So I will hand over to Alison to get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Marla. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the August webcast, which is around creating and managing online forms in Association Online. So the purpose of today and this webcast is to introduce you to, or maybe refresh your knowledge of, the forms module. When we talk about the forms module, though, I'm not talking about membership sign-up or renewal forms or even event registration forms. The forms module can create forms that can be used for any other purposes, and I'll give you some examples of that shortly as well. Just a reminder that the webcasts aren't specific training sessions, but more of an overview. And obviously, Marla said we'll be recording it, so for your future reference. So if you want further in-depth knowledge around the module, you need to get in touch with us as well. But what we will cover today in this session and after this webcast, you should be able to utilize your forms module with confidence and create and edit all of your online forms. So we'll go through what the forms module is used for, how to set up and manage your account management forms, like change your password or update your details. Look at form categories. Look at the different types of fields that you can use in forms as well. Make your forms more user-friendly. How to edit your form settings, how to edit a form once it's created, and how to add that form to the website page, because it's all well and good to create the form, but what do you do with that form? I'm going to get sick of saying the word form today. I think it's used throughout the whole webcast. The second part of the training will look at the reporting side. So great, you've got these forms on your website. What do you do with them when they've been completed by a user? So there's a way that you can manage your form submissions. So some of you might be new to this. And there's also queries that you can build and run reports on your forms as well. So there's a little bit to cover today. So the forms module, we use the forms module to create these type of forms like contact us, inquire here, inquire now, update your details, change your password, fill in a survey, a short survey or feedback form, or gathering and collecting specific information about anything else, really. So the world's your oyster when it comes to these type of forms in a way. What it's not really used for is for membership or event registration forms. They are managed in the membership and the events module on their own. I know some clients do use the forms module as an introduction to membership or a membership application form as a, just give us some more information first and then we'll decide if you're due to be a member or not. So that can be used in that way as well. So we'll start with account management forms. There are some existing forms that come with Association Online. So these could be, sorry, I'll just go back one, sorry. Yeah. So these existing forms are things like update my details or change my password. So the users can go into the website, they can go to the member center or account page and go and update their details or change their password. So I'm going to go onto my site and show you that. Where did I put it? In here. Just get out of my GoToWebinar connection. Okay, so if I'm on my website, I'll just go to the public site and I'll go to the member center. And here we find the two sections where you have account management forms that you can connect to, such as update details and change password. Now the fields listed here are pulling from the database, so they read and write back to the database. So because I'm logged in, it's pre-populated all of my information already. Okay, so it's a basic update your details form. So they are using the database fields and password information. So the change password is set your password and verify it. Okay, 2 fields only. Okay, so we can have a look at those fields. I'll just show you those forms. Sorry, I went too far again. I'm doing well today. Previous, there we go. So in the forms section, in the forms module under tools, okay, you go to tools at the top and forms is listed underneath your document manager. Now, if it's not sitting in your site, it may have been edited, changed, moved, labeled differently. So you may need to look at where it is sitting in your site if those forms are sitting in there somewhere. But by default, we have a category called My Account. And this is where you'll find the change password and update your details forms. Okay. I'm not going to show you how to edit those yet. We're going to look at that later, but just so you know where they sit. Okay, so that's what fields, where those forms are sitting at the moment. So to build our forms and edit our forms, we can use form categories. So we can file and categorize our forms into specific labels. You don't need to have lots and lots of categories if you only have 1 or 2 forms. You may only want 1 category, but you need to have at least 1 category to have a form sitting in it. So we can create new categories by clicking on the new category link at the bottom. Okay, and just label the category. So all we need to do is name it and save it basically. So at the bottom of the category list, I'll click on new category. I'm just going to call this one training for today. But what you can also do here is restrict who can access. So which access groups can see and read and write into the forms under this category. So you can restrict it to specific access groups. I'm not going to restrict it today. I don't really need to because it's a training site. Beautiful. So that's my training category. So it's very simple to create your categories. Once you've created your categories, you can then go and click on the Add Form button. Okay, so we can click on Add Form. So I'm just going to show you that. Okay, we're going to create a form. So you just click on Add a Form link. And then we use the form data to add our form fields. Okay, when you open up your form, there are 4 tabs across the top. Form data, form settings, categories, and a preview tab. We're going to start with the form data, which is the fields. These are the fields we want to add to our form. What information do we want our people to fill in? Okay, so I'm going to call this just our training form and add a form. Once you've added the form, it displays in your list, and then you can go and click on the link of the form to edit it or the little folder next to it to go and edit that form. So there's my 4 tabs across the top. Okay, I've got no fields at the moment, so I need to add an item at the bottom. Now I have some fields here to choose from, so the type of field I want to use. There are about 10 types. One I can't add up, but I think there's about 10 types There were 10 last time I did this, so hopefully it's still 10. 10 field types that you can use to add to your form. So I'm going to go through all of these different field types to show you some examples today. So we'll start with title. So you can use a title for the form, add it to the current page, or you can create a new page. So you can have pages in your forms as well. I'm just going to call it sample training form and click on the add button to add your field. Okay, that's added my title in the form. We have a caption field. Now, caption fields are used to give instructional information. So it's a place that you can just add some text, but you can also format that information as well using the HTML editor, the WYSIWYG editor. So you've got some headings, you've got colors, you can make it bold, you can add an image, you can add a link. Okay, please complete the details below for our records. All right, so I'm just going to pop in some example there, just a bit of a caption, a bit of instructional information. I can make it a heading, make it look a bit nicer, change the color, etc. Okay, that's added my next field in. So now I've got 2 fields listed here. What else can we do? There's an input field. An input field is just a short text, a short little one-liner. Looks like a one-liner of information. What would I put? Input field. So you could use the input field to say, I'm going to do this for now, but I'll show you where I'm going to put it later. Referral name. Okay, I'm asking for a referral. Okay, and there's just an input field, a single line of text. There is a text area field where you're asking for kind of looks like a paragraph of information. So you're asking them to fill in a bunch of information. And the label, any other details. Okay, so there's my label and there's my text area. All right, I'm going to drop down to the bottom of this list and go to the contacts field. I'll go through some of the others shortly. But I'm choosing contacts field because what that does is link to your database. Okay, so it makes the field read and write back to your database, just like I showed you before in the update details fields. So when you select the contacts field, the option for adding fields from the contacts area displays below. Okay, so now we can choose from a list of our database fields. So I'm going to say first name. Make it required. They must put in their first name. Okay, and add the label. So you can obviously label it differently too than what it's actually labeled as in the database as well. So if we say I'll choose last name, I'm also going to put last name and make it required. And you can say surname. And I'm also going to add email address. And the reason I'm doing this is because these 3 fields are a requirement of our database. In order to create the database ID, we need to have the first name, last name, and email address fields listed here. I'm going to move these other fields to the bottom of the page. Move to the bottom of the page so that they're up the top. So you see how you can also move your fields around. Okay, move the field to the top, up, down, bottom, or you can create a new page as well. I don't know about you, but if I'm filling in a form and it's got multiple pages, I probably wouldn't want to spend a lot of time doing that. But most people are time poor these days. If you're filling in an online form, you want it to be short, sharp, and sweet. Whatever information you basically need. Okay. So yes, so first name, last name, email address, they're required fields because they're a requirement of the database. Now, before you saw my details were displayed in those fields already because I was logged in. So it was recognizing my details already linked in the database. If someone goes to fill in a form and they're not logged in and they type in their first name, last name, email address, and it's it's what's the word? It's exactly the same as what's in the database. The system will recognize that they're already in the database, and they'll ask them to log in to finish it off. Okay, so it'll ask them to log in. So some other field types we have here, we have radio buttons. Did you like our event? I'm just going to do some random examples of questions you can ask. And so with the radio buttons, it's a choice. They can choose one option only. And you can display radio buttons in 1, 2, or 3 columns. So I might do 3 columns across the page. Yes, no, maybe. Okay, there's the radio buttons. Did you like our event? We have check boxes where they can choose from a list and choose multiple options. Might say, how did you hear about us? Internet, another association, Yellow Pages, whoever looks in there these days. Cookie Monster told me. Okay, so check boxes, you can choose one or more items. Okay, one or more option. We also have a drop-down list, select list, where they can choose one option from a list of drop-down items. So I might say, what type of member are you? I'll just say full member, associate member, another association, or not a member. Okay, so there's a drop-down list now. There you go. So you have some real flexibility around how you present your form and in what way you want your members to answer the questions. And I think when you know how you're going to pull this information out of the system, if you're asking them to fill in some questions, how you're going to pull it out, what it's going to look like, that gives you an idea of how to present it. So the last one I want to show you is a file upload. So you can ask them to upload a document. Please submit your certificate of attendance. So these are all very random questions, but this gives you some examples of how you would use these particular fields. Now that we have our data, as I mentioned, you can move the fields around on the page, move them up, down, top or bottom. If you need to edit the field, you can click on the Configure button and configure the field. I don't know why that didn't work for a second there. What's going on? Might just go out of my form and back into it and configure. It's restricting a pop-up or something. There's a pop-up. When you click on configure, it pops up to edit it. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I might just go into Chrome and have a look. Oh. So if in doubt, open up a new browser or a different browser and you can go have a look there. So Chrome, I wasn't in Chrome originally, and Chrome is actually really good with our, works really well with our system. So that was my bad. Configure. There we go, pop up. So when you click on configure, you just go in and relabel it, change the field, whatever you need to do. Make it required or not required. And there's a little rubbish bin next to the configure option to then delete the field as well. So that's an example of some of the field types and how you could use them and to create a form. Okay. And I just went through this, how you edit your form fields by moving the field around and configure the field details or delete it. So now we've got our form data, let's go and look at our form settings. So I'm going to show you how to complete some of the form setting fields. What are some of the things that you can do with these forms? The form settings, the first one is a form type, and by default, it selects new form each time. A new form is created every time you someone opens up this form to use, and an email is sent when the form is submitted. Or you can click on reload the previous form. The form displays any previously submitted information from that user. So it's a form that they've already filled in. It will reload what they filled in last time. Okay, and they can edit it. But so generally by default, we say do a new form each time. Okay, especially if it's contact us or inquire now, you don't want it, or even a feedback form, you don't want to have it filled in already. You want them to get that information in again. And then we have form administrators. So every form that you create, you should assign a form administrator to, so that that person receives an email when a form is submitted. They know that something's been submitted. If you don't have a form administrator, you won't know by default. Not by default. You won't know necessarily that a form has been submitted. You have to go in and look for it. All right. So this way you can assign a specific person to say, this person in the organization receives the form emails. I'm just going to add myself. So you search through your staff list, your staff members or your list of staff in the database will be on the right-hand side. So you click on the relevant person and the add button at the top. So now I'm sitting under the form administrators section. The form settings expiry date is currently not working. It is a bug in the system, so we can't apply an expiry date. All you do really is just turn off that form on the website, okay, when you're ready for it to not be displayed anymore. Is login required? So maybe the form is a members only form. So you're saying they should be logged in to fill this form in. Okay, that's up to you. If it's a publicly accessed form, leave it as no. If you do have multiple pages in your form, you can display them as tabs. So they look like tabs rather than page links at the bottom. Now, standards form, if you select no, the labels don't always preview correctly. So I'm just going to show you that. It's currently selected as no. So if I go to the preview tab, you see on my my text area field, the label at the top isn't displaying. And same with the select list and the upload file. So always, it's great to check that in the preview if you think, why aren't those labels displaying properly? It's because you do need to select that it be a standards form. Okay, so just hit yes. Now if I go to the preview, it's laid out a lot better. It's not all over the place. There's the labels displaying. Okay, so if anything, if someone's been using these forms for a while, that's something you may not have known. So you've got a little tip there. Do I want to show the title on the form, and the title being the title displaying here underneath that field? Now, because I created a title in the form fields, it's now doubling up. I've got a title and then a subtitle. All right, so I might turn the title off. I don't need both. Let's turn that off. Field label width also, I find that doesn't really work either, so just ignore that. But you can add a logo, but it's sitting within your web page. I can put a logo in if I want. Actually, choose a bigger one. Okay, let's save that. I'm saving as we go so I don't lose anything. There's my logo. You can add an address, and a description and a footer. There's just little things you can add to your form within your form page. I'll just save that and I'll show you what that looks like. Let's have a look, preview. So I put my logo and the address in the top right-hand corner. So there's a few little things you can do with that. But scrolling down, this part's a bit more important. This is the form completed action. What happens when someone does submit the form? Do you want to display the form completed text, which displays from this section here, which is formatted? Someone can't spell thank you. So you can edit the text here. So thank you for your taking the time to complete the form. We appreciate your feedback, whatever it might be. Sometimes that's in the email. Sometimes you see a pop-up or something saying someone will get back to you in 48 hours. So you can display the text in the page or display it as a pop-up message. And that's the pop-up message below. Your feedback. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like when I submit my form later. You also have the setting of submission notification to the user, which means send the user an email. Okay, once they complete their form, do you want to send them an email, yes or no? If it's just a form that they don't need any feedback on, you can say no, but if you do need to send them something, you can type a short email message. It's just a very standard message in here. So I might use these placeholders below. These placeholders are pulled from the form detail that I created. Did you like our event? How did you hear about us? So auto created a placeholder based on the fields in my form. Now to add these placeholders to your email message, you need to highlight them, Control C and Control V in your message. Thank you for completing our training form. We appreciate your feedback. Well, someone will get back to you in 48 hours. Okay, so that's the email that will be sent to them, but there's also an admin email message. A form can be sent to you to say, here's the details about a form. A form has been submitted. Okay, so that will go to the administrator you chose for this form, which would be me at the moment. So that's a bit about the form settings. So the next tab is the categories. Which category is this form displaying in? And the preview tab, which we've already looked at a couple of times. Awesome. So I've created my form. What am I going to do with it? I need to go and add it to my website page. Now, if those of you have recently done some website CMS training, you would know this. But for those of you who haven't, you may not, or it may be a great refresher for you. There's two ways we can add a form to a web page. We can add the form using the Forms tab in your page content. There is an option to add the form inline, which means it displays within the page, or as a link on the page. The other option is we can go into the WYSIWYG editor within the page in the content section and use the link of the form in there. So I'm going to show you both. Let's have a look. I've got my sample training form here. I want to go and add it to my web page. I'm going to use About Us. I'm in Website CMS. I'm going to say Our Staff. I've called it Training Page anyway. Awesome. So I'm within a web page and I've got a Forms tab up the top. Now, what initially displays when you come to the Forms tab is 3 categories, the categories from the Forms module that you've created. So this is a great tool. The categories can be a good tool for you to consolidate your forms into specific information. So if you have lots and lots of forms, then you know which category you need to open to find the form you're looking for, instead of having them all automatically display on your page. Okay, so to find the form, you need to click on the little plus sign in the right-hand corner to the right of the form category. So here's my training form. It's currently turned off, but I can add it inline on the page or as a link and have the link pop up. Okay, so I'm going to add it inline today because I like the inline feature. It adds it within the page. I'm going to open up my home page and go and have a look at that. Okay, let's go to Our Staff. Got no page content. Here's my form. It's in the page already. Okay, it sits within the page there. Now, because I am logged in, it has pre-populated my details: first name, last name, email address, etc. Before I do that though, I want to show you the other way you could add a form to your page. So yes, you can use the Forms tab, or I'm just going to go and open the training page in another format. Or we could go into the Content tab of the page. Here's our page content. and I want to put in my training form. So we can use the link functionality in the WYSIWYG editor to add a link to our form. So I'm going to highlight my text that I want to be the link, click on the link icon, but I actually need the URL first. I need to know what the form link actually is. How do I find that? I need to go back to the Forms tab, and next to the form title, there is a little link box. Oh, there it is. I click on the link and it pops up with the URL in it. Okay, so all you need to do is highlight that URL link, Control C, and Control V in the URL field in the link properties. If you can't remember, don't worry about remembering all this right now. We do have, and I'll show you at the end of training, we do have an online user guide that gives you that instruction on how to link forms into your web page. But also remember, you are getting a recording too. So you can then make that link pop up using the Target tab. You make it open up in a new window or a pop-up window. And even better, I love this feature, as some of you already know who I've trained before. In the Advanced tab, we have under Style Sheet Classes, you can turn it into a button. So you can turn the form link into a button as well. So let's save that and have a look. Just refresh my page on the website. Here we are, there's my training form link as it's a button, and I can click on it and it'll open up onto the form page. Beautiful. So I'm going to fill in this form now. So I'm going to, I was supposed to move those down the bottom, referral name, Fred Flintstone. You do great work. I did like the event. I heard about you from Cookie Monster. I'm not a member and I'm not going to upload my certificate because it's not a required field. And now when I submitted, they had the pop-up come up. Thank you for taking the time to complete the form. We appreciate your feedback. Okay, that's the pop-up information I filled in before. Awesome. So sorry if I'm going a bit fast. We only have a short period of time and there's a lot of content to cover in forms. But that's a basic example, creating and building your form, adding it to your web page, and your users submit their forms on the website. Then what happens? What do you do with those submitted forms? So I was the administrator, or actually I was also the person that filled in the form, but the user that filled in the form would have received that email. Thank you for submitting your form. We'll get back to you, or we appreciate your feedback. And as the administrator, I would get an email saying the form's been submitted. Go here to see the form details, or here's the results of the form. But also in the forms module, we have a section called submitted forms where you can view all of the forms that have been submitted through your website. Let's go have a look. I'll go back to tools. I've got too many pages open. Forms, and now I can go to submitted forms. So it puts the forms into the categories. So we've got our category at the top, our forms underneath. Okay, training form. And you have a list first of unprocessed forms. So these are all the forms that have been submitted that haven't yet been processed according to this system. Now, this is an optional part of the system as to whether you use it or not. It's there if you want it. But basically, it's a way for you to keep track of which forms you've actioned and replied to. Now, you might reply directly to the person. If someone submitted an inquiry form, you've picked up the phone and called them. It doesn't recognize that in the system that you've done that action. So you can come here and say, oh, I called them back, and that's all finished with. So what you can do, it says that they're unprocessed according to Association Online. You can click on the form and see a full list of unprocessed forms here. There are two tabs, unprocessed and processed. This is truly only an administrative action, okay? It's not a system action. It's completely up to you if you use it. But what it means, I certainly recommend using it if you do have a large group of administrators in your organization and you're receiving different forms at different times. It's a way to collate that data together. So you could come in and see, oh, Jenny actually actioned this form for me already. I don't need to do anything with it because she's made a note in here. So I can go and view the form that was submitted, who it was submitted by, the data that was submitted, the results, and I can put in notes. Okay. Called Alison back, no further action required, and mark it as processed. That then moves that form detail into the Processed Forms tab, where we can still view the details, but we can also delete the form. Select it and hit the trash can. Some of you have been with us with Association Online for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few of you. Some people use this part of the system, some haven't. If you clicked on your submitted forms section right now, I wonder what it would look like. Because anytime someone's updated their details or hit the contact form, you know, all those forms will be sitting maybe in unprocessed. But what this also does is also saves that information under my database profile. Now, because I'm a staff member, it won't, but if I was sitting in the user in the contacts list, it would save under my database as well in the CRM tab. I don't think I've ever filled in a form under Cookie Monster or anything like that, but I'll just show you an example. Under CRM, there is a forms section in the individual profile. So you would be able to see whatever submitted forms they have submitted as well, and the information in there. Okay, so that's just a bit of reference for you too. So that's what you can do with those submitted forms, and that's fine for things like Inquire Now or Contact Us. Maybe you don't need to do anything else with them. Okay, they've just asked a question and you've responded. But what if there was a feedback form? You know, you asked for information. How did you hear about us? And you want to collate that together. You want to find out how many people have heard about you from another association, or how many people liked the event. What did they like about them? How many people filled in this form are actually members? Right? There might be a lot more content that you'd like to report on, but that you can actually build those queries based on any of the questions that you built in that form. So underneath submitted forms, there is a query results section. You can save your queries as well, and then any queries that you've saved, so you don't have to rebuild them every time. If it's a regular report you're going to run, you might want to click on and save that query, and it will automatically bring up the details that you've saved in the past. Or you click on new query and build a new one. So training form. It's interesting. I haven't noticed this before, but any forms that I've actually deleted from the system, which I have, there is still asking me to run a query based on those forms, and I've deleted them already. But I'm not sure why. I'd need to ask the developers why that's sitting there. So good. Okay, so I'm going to build a query based on the training form and on how did you hear about us? That's my query name. Now, by default, the match field is set to all, which means it's going to match on all the conditions I set below. So if I put in how did you hear about us equal to the internet and how did you hear about us equal to another association, the system will look for all of those people that have ticked both, okay, because it's got to match every condition below. Now, for that will be restrictive. It will restrict it because how many people would have ticked both of them? Probably minimal. So I always say, just to cover yourself, always tick match any. Select match any of the conditions below. And then you can then filter out your results when you get to your spreadsheet. All right, so I want to match any and find how many people heard about us equal to the internet. How many people heard about us equal to another association? You can add as many conditions as you want. Okay, and it'll bring up anyone that has filled in that result because I selected any. Okay. And then you can save, there's a save button, or click on search and it will take you to the page with a list of results. Which ones filled in the form has a result equal to these options. You can then export that list or export the details. I'm going to click on export details, which means I can then choose which fields I want to pull out into a spreadsheet. Okay, so I want to choose first name, surname, how did you hear about us? And I might just say, see what type of member they are at the same time. Control and click to choose multiple options, multiple fields. Click on the add button and it adds them in the list on the left. So they're the fields that we're going to export into a spreadsheet and export results. Okay, I haven't got a lot of results to show you because one person filled in the form, but you get the idea. So then you could then filter, and if you had other people that had submitted that form and they were a different type of member, you could use the sort and filter options. Okay, so then you could also build a query. I'll just show you one more because it's lots of different things you can do here. What type of member are you? And you can match any. Okay, and your conditions. So your conditions are built based on the form that you've selected up here. So I selected training form. These are the fields I have in that training form. Okay, so what type of member are you? Equal to, okay, equal to full member, another associate member, etc. Okay, so that's just an example of a few queries that you can run there. So that's really all I want to show you around the forms module today. So what we looked at was what kinds of things we could use the forms module for. So what information do you want to collect from the website? How you use the account management forms, so update your details and change password, which is listed under my account on my site, but it might be labeled differently on yours. But that's something if I would recommend you go and check if you haven't done it before. Go and check what fields are displaying in here because by default we have some fields in update my details already set for you, but you might have some more fields you want to add in there. Okay, you might have some more fields you want to make required. All right, so you might need to check that and make sure that if there is someone that is an form administrator and it's up to date. That's what I recommend you have a look at. We then looked at creating and editing forms, looked at all the different types of form fields you can add to your form, how to use your form settings, manage those form submissions and changing them from unprocessed to processed, building those form queries, and adding forms to the web pages in a nutshell. As I mentioned, there is a tools user guide in the client support portal, and the tools user guide includes both document manager and forms modules. But I will go and show you that. So when you go onto the client support portal and sign in, you click on Association Online on the right for those who haven't been here before. And under Association Online User Guides, there is a Tools section. Okay, and the Tools manual is there. It is a clickable manual, so it's a PDF clickable. Okay, so there's a whole section on forms. Form categories, creating a form, copying forms, because that's something else you can do. Actually, I didn't mention that, sorry. You can copy a form as well rather than reinventing the wheel. If it's a similar form you've used before, you can click on the little copy button and then edit it as needed. The form fields, there's a list. This is what I wanted to show you. There's a list of all of the form fields and what each of those do and some samples of what they look like. Okay, what the settings, each of the settings mean. Okay, what each of those settings do. How the emails work, how to add a form. This is the other thing I wanted to show you, how to add a form to a web page. Okay, So that's what I was going to say. So make sure if you are ready to start using forms or want to refresh your forms or look at them again, there is a manual there to support you. Okay, so our next webcast before we go to questions, we have on the 23rd of October, we're looking at the email template management, and we're talking about emails from membership, events, commerce, our generic emails that are, or automated emails that are sent from the system, not our communications template. This is our automated emails. And on the 11th of December, we're going to go into more detail on website CMS page management. So I showed you a little bit about adding forms to your page and how to turn them into a button. So I'll be looking at more at a lot of those sort of things and using that WYSIWYG editor to make your pages look more exciting. Are there any questions? I'll hand back to Marla. Thank you, Marla, if we can address any questions that we have. Hopefully I can answer them.
Thanks, Ali. Yes, as we mentioned at the start, if you do have any questions, you just need to open the control panel to the right of the viewer window, type your question in the box provided, and then click on send. I'll receive those and I can read them out to Ali because we have a few moments now to go through them. I'll just go back to the top, a couple of questions that have come in already. You did answer this, but if you can just reiterate it, Ali. A question from Jason was, how does the form handle duplicates when creating a new record?
Great, thanks, Jason. It's very much the same as, when they fill in a membership form or an event registration form. If the person puts in their first name, surname as Jim Smith, and his name in the database is James Smith, it will create a duplicate record. So you would need to still manage your duplicates in the people section. It's the same with any form in the database. In the whole website. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Question from Amanda. Are radio buttons still not working in the one column format? Is that one that we need to take up offline? Or?
Yes, I will, because I didn't know they weren't working in the one column format.
Might be.
Let me just have a quick look, Amanda. That's a great question. You've obviously used it before. I might just configure my radio buttons and see. Okay. It may be a configuration on your site. So I will, Amanda, I'll figure out which Amanda it is because it'll be in the responses. And so one column format, and I might look at your site specifically and have a look at it. All right. Thanks, Amanda.
Question from Megan. She said she's just made a new form with some dot points in the caption fields, but the dot points don't show on the form on the site. Is there any suggestions why?
Again, it could be to do with the styling or the layout, so I'd need to have a look at that. But that's a really good question as well. So when we've got, because you've got the WYSIWYG, so if we add it, dot points, testing, dot points. So it's usually to do with the layout. So it might be to do with your styling. Yeah, oh, hang on. It's not displaying on my preview. Yeah, okay. I will follow that one up as well.
Right.
Thanks, Megan.
Jade just says, thank you for the standard forms tip to display labels correctly. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jade.
From Belinda, is it okay to delete old forms as the backup is in people? Is that correct?
I would generally not delete them if you need to keep them in reference. Yes, you will see in people their forms that they've submitted in the past, but you won't see them in the submitted forms section anymore. So I generally would say keep old forms, but maybe create an archive category or something like that. Only delete forms generally if they're training practice or you've used for test purposes. Just for historical purposes, I just generally like to say don't delete stuff unless you absolutely have to.
Just on the dot points again from Megan, she said the dot points are showing on the preview but not on the live site. So,
okay, yeah, again, that would be to do with your styling or formatting. Yeah.
Okay. A question from Jade. Can the update details form from the My Profile be the same as the update details from the My Memberships? Can they be the same?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Jade. Generally, no. And the reason being the update details form for membership, we relate to the My Membership section is connected to the My Membership section in the Member Center. So when you're in the My Memberships, the Update Details tab here is the Membership Update Details form. Okay, it may not be relevant because the my Update Your Details form can be used for the public as well as your members. So the content, the fields can be the same. You can use similar fields, but the membership one is going to link to the My Membership section. This one for Update My Details is open to the public as a general rule. But if you want to send me an email with that question, like depending on your setup, maybe you've set it up differently, we can have a look at that.
All right. Thank you, Ali. That looks to be all the questions for today. So on that note, we'll wrap it up. So thank you, Ali, for a great webcast, and thank you everyone for taking time out of your afternoon to learn a bit more about online forms. Just before you disconnect from today's webcast, we just ask that you take a few moments to complete our short webcast survey that will pop up when you disconnect. So just a few couple of questions that will provide us with some valuable feedback on our webcast program. So thank you in advance for that feedback. As Ali mentioned, our next webcast is on the 23rd of October, so we're taking a break in September, and that will be at 2 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so we'll be transferring to Daylight Savings Time then, and that's on the email template management. So you'll look out for details on that on your email shortly. And just a reminder, as I mentioned at the start, we'll send a recording of today's webcast out to you directly in the next couple of hours. But as well, our webcasts are always available for you on our YouTube channel or through the client support portal, so where you go and log your tech support calls. So that concludes our webcast for today, so we'll leave it there. Thank you again for joining us, and goodbye for now.